Hello, lovely beings. I'm JJ Rose. I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Deb. Hey, Dr. Deb.
Hello.
So, Dr. Deb and I go way back. I have known her for almost 20 years at this point. She has been one of my mentors and a really great friend through so many things. She runs Dr. Deb's Herbals, and she is a medical empath. So, Dr. Deb, let's just start with you and what even got you into herbs in the first place.
So I was working as a growth pathologist at Sutter for 18 years, and I got cancer, and I was doing the treatments and decided the treatments were worse than the cancer. So I told my husband, I'm going to use herbs for the symptoms and stay here as long as I'm supposed to. They assured my husband that I'd be gone in 2 years, and actually we got married so he could adopt my son. And so now every 4th of July he complains that they lied to him because this year will be 35 years we've been married.
Wow.
I came home, and of course, you don't just take a couple of herbs and jump out of bed. I was in bed probably 3 years. I went into a thyroid storm and went down to 58 pounds, and they couldn't believe I was still alive. So I let them irradiate my thyroid. Then I realized I needed a doctor for my herbs, so I finished my doctor in naturopathy online in my waterbed. And that was in 93, and I'm still here and kicking.
And as someone who has seen the picture of you when you were 58 pounds, it is startling as well as an absolute miracle to see that not only are you still alive, but you are very fit and very lively. You even ride motorcycles. I got to see your trike when you had just got the purple people eater.
Yeah, now I've upgraded to a slingshot. It looks like a Batmobile.
Oh my God, I love it. So, one of the things when you got the cancer and basically you were deemed terminal, and you really got into herbs and healing yourself because, like you said, the treatment for cancer medically at that time was worse than the cancer itself. I remember, didn't you take a couple trips to go around and find different herbal?
I did go to Arizona, and the lady that I spoke with was Chinese medicine. But I believe that local herbs work best for local people, and so I didn't resonate with that. I also believe we don't live in a world where we can be all holistic all the time, but all of our medications are created from herbs. And so I did some research and god awful lot of reading, and I went on Protocell, which is a natural chemotherapy. So the natural chemotherapy actually kills cancer cells, and so you still have some side effects, throwing up, headaches, but just recently I've had my second blood test in 2 years that's almost normal.
Wow.
If I can keep those blood tests almost normal for 5 years, they'll call me cured. And I have a genetic form of lymphocytic leukemia that's not supposed to be curable.
Wow. Well, you're quite the miracle story, just being you. Now, you are a medical empath, which means that you're able to sense things, right, that are going on with people.
I can walk by people and feel their symptoms, or when I talk to people and they're talking about symptoms, I can feel what they're feeling, which of course helps me help them better.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it sucks to be me. I can't go to a big venue because I can feel what's wrong with 500 people. Then it makes it hard to differentiate if it's me or someone else.
I feel that, honey, so much. So
But it does make me a cheap drunk. If I go to a bar, I pick up on people's energies and I get drunk for free.
I love it. Very much the same. You and I definitely hit the bar on both of those, so I get that. Now, were you
Yeah.
always intuitive?
I grew up off the grid in a logging camp, and my grandmother was a healer from Belfast, Ireland. And she explained to me that we all have this gift. You just have to learn how to shut up and listen. And so she just taught me how to shut up and listen.
I love that. So true.
But I think we're all empaths. We just don't understand it. And when I was starting to walk by people and feel their symptoms at about 16, one day I just stopped and said, okay, God, what do you want me to do with this? And then once I understood that it was real and I accepted it, it got stronger and stronger.
That in and of itself, like, we could just end the interview there, and I think that wisdom alone is amazing, but we're going to keep going because you're a wealth of knowledge, and if I have you, I am going to take as much as I can.
Sometimes if I get feelings, like I'll feel some symptom, I'll actually muscle test it. Is this mine? Yes or no? And as soon as I acknowledge it, it either goes away or I can deal with it.
So let's talk about your muscle testing technique, because I had been raised with the old way, where you put your arm up to the side and you have to apply pressure, which usually took two people. And when I met you, you were like, you can do this all the way on your own. And I've used it ever since. So I've taught it to many people as well.
So let me explain the physics behind it. To see anything, it's not solid. It's a bunch of atoms held together with electrons, and we're full of electrolytes. So if you hold something up to your body just below your boobs, close your eyes and ask, would this be good for my health? Your body will go forward for a yes or backwards for a no. Sometimes if you're just standing there swaying, it's telling you it's not going to cure me, it's not going to kill me. But once you know that muscle testing, you can ask familiar questions because you've already got all the answers in your head from God. So you could ask how many capsules and start counting 1, 2, 3, and see when your heels come off the ground. Or should I take this in the morning? Should I take this at night? And before food, after food. But it also works with food and medications as well. A lot of people are taking medications, but they're taking them wrong.
That's a really...
So that muscle testing works for that.
Yeah, so one of the things when I had taken your class that you were talking about is when you would go to the grocery store, that sometimes you would just kind of catapult into certain vegetables or fruits. And
I just kind of hold up my hand and I'm thinking in my head, what do I need right now, and see what pulls me forward.
Nice. So I was at the it was like a Whole Foods type store, and I was in the vitamin aisle, and I didn't even know I was deficient in anything at that point. I can't even remember what I was looking for, and I literally just like leaned forward and almost took out the whole shelf of iron once. And the poor girl who was working in the aisle was like, are you okay? Like, are you going to pass out? And I'm like, no, apparently I really need iron. And she was amazed. And so I ended up teaching her the technique. And she went on, she's now a manager of like 3 stores. Just based on that technique alone, they were able to get their herbs and mineral supplements up by actually being able to talk to people about, you will kind of instinctually know what it is that your body needs.
And also, if you're familiar with something, like you read a list, vitamin D, dandelion, whatever, you can muscle test just by looking at the words because you're already familiar with the energies of that.
That's true. That's true. So, So when you are taking an herb or a food and it tastes really good or really bad? There's a science behind that. I'd love you to touch on that.
So there's a hormone that kicks off in your hypothalamus if something tastes really good. It's because your body needs it. When it tastes really bad, most of the time there's something about that taste that is wrong. You shouldn't take it. You're taking it at the wrong time of day, or you're taking it in the wrong dosage. I've had people who take Essiac tea, which tastes like dirt to me, and we talked about that. And so I muscle tested it, and I was not taking quite enough. And when I took just a little bit more, the taste changed.
Nice. Okay, so when it tastes good, that means you need it, you're taking it at the right time. But when it tastes bad, it's almost like your body's instinctual way of saying, no, I don't need this.
Right. Now, that goes for taking herbs and stuff. But when we're talking about food, I'm telling you, a Snickers bar will taste good all the time and not be good for you.
True, right? Yeah. So with foods themselves, there's something that I've noticed happens every once in a while with me. Like I'm very much a creature of habit when it comes to foods. Like there's things that I kind of like and I'll stick to those. And then all of a sudden one day they just taste awful. And then I realize, oh, I'm probably too high in whatever they're full of. And I have
Yeah, and also cravings. You need to listen to cravings. When you get a craving, it's usually because there's something in there that you need.
That makes sense. Yeah, you were actually one of the people who taught me about pica when it comes to low iron, because that's been a major issue that I've had. And I remember you had asked me, you said, when you smell dirt, does it smell good? And I was like, yeah, it smells delicious. And you were like, yep. So that and the craving for ice. I am I like everything room temperature, very tepid. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was craving ice. Like I would all the time, didn't matter if it was winter, summer, spring. And you had brought that up too, that's also a part of pica is the craving of ice, smelling dirt or looking at clay.
Low iron.
Yeah. Yeah. So in herbal medicine, like cures like, so cold people, they've got poor circulation, they're shivering all the time, they're anemic. So those people need, iron. Yeah. And can we talk about iron for a minute? Because I have noticed this. No worries.
The dog will have to bark for a minute. Okay, go ahead.
No worries. So with low iron, I've noticed an uptick of folks with low iron as of late. And, yes, it's very normal in females of a certain age, but I started noticing this with females who were, post-menopause, as well as some males, which male anemia seems to be pretty rare. It exists, but it's not very common. So I'm wondering if you have any insights besides the thing that...
a lot of it is our food sources. Right now we think we're all educated and we're trying to eat totally organic, but some of those foods have been fortified because we're lacking in iron and all that stuff, like drinking milk instead of, almond milk or, a lactose-free milk. It's been fortified with vitamin D and iron. And so a lot of us are iron deficient because we're not eating fortified foods. And with all the chemtrail spraying and everything, our vegetables aren't as healthy as they used to be.
Yeah, and that's also, they don't let the fields go fallow, I've been noticing. So in old times, a field going fallow means they would let an entire season go by where they would kind of rototill everything into the dirt and just let the dirt kind of reconstitute. But now it's, push it, push it, push it. And you're right, we're not getting the same nutrition from our foods as we used to.
Yeah. So, back in the 1934s, when we were having depression, the farmers all got together and they cross-pollinated seeds for wheat to get a bigger yield in a shorter amount of time. It worked so well, they kept doing that. And so grains and all that are so modified now. Our body looks at that grain and says, what the hell is that? That's why so many people are also gluten tolerant. It's because the grains we have now, that our body doesn't recognize it as food.
Oh, that's interesting. So,
also after menopause, there's a hormone in grain that a woman's body doesn't recognize anyway. And so it converts right to belly fat.
oh, okay. So is that why a lot of women who are in menopause or post-menopause tend to get that belly weight that they're not able to lose?
Oh, just like
So
yeah, typical day at my house. We have an herbal pharmacy here, so there's several people running around working right now.
no worries. So that non-recognizing.
Talking about the grains and everything. One thing people don't recognize is a calorie is a measurement of heat. So we eat all this really good food so we don't gain weight. But if you drink cold or room temperature fluids with your meals, that food sits in your gut till it has enough calorie heat to digest. So the easiest way to control your weight is to have a quarter cup of something hot at the end of your meal after you're done chewing. That's why the Chinese give you the cute little teacup.
Oh, okay. So don't drink cold liquid with a meal then.
So it doesn't matter what you drink during the meal, because when we chew, we make enzymes. It mixes with hydrochloric acid, so you don't start digesting until you're done chewing. So at the end of your meal, think of your stomach as a greasy plate. If you drink warm fluids, number one, you're burning calories. Number two, the fat in your foods turns into heat-derived lipase, which means hot fat, and your good cholesterol. Cold or room temperature turns into low-density lipase, that's your bad cholesterol. So even the way to control your cholesterol is to have those warm fluids at the end of your meals.
Oh, awesome. And I remember you used to say warm water with a little lemon in it.
Warm lemon water makes your body alkaline. And of course, cancer can't grow in an alkaline body.
Perfect. And that also helps with...
cold lemon water is acid.
Got it. Okay, so warm lemon water is alkaline. And that also helps with digesting fat, right?
It does.
Perfect. Well, those are some tips right there. Since we're on the subject of weight in general, it's something that I've noticed pretty much my entire life. So people like myself who are extremely spiritually sensitive, sixth sense heavy, we tend to kind of hit a weight and we stay there no matter what we do physically or eating wise. What is it with the gaining of weight or being...
I believe that there's a psychological component. Think about the happiest time in your life. You were a fat, chubby baby. And we get to this weight, even though we're a little overweight, we're not comfortable with it, but we've learned to live like that. And so you have to change your mindset and say, this like right now I'm 130 pounds and I'm more comfortable at 120. And so instead of just saying, oh, I should do something about this and I keep floating on, I look in the mirror in the morning and say, you're a little fat. And that day, automatically, I'll start to eat something and not do it. You just have to recognize every morning, I'm a good person, but I'm not comfortable with how much I weigh. And just tell yourself that and be mindful every morning, and it will change the way you act during the day. Because you have to get to that good weight, and then you look in the picture every morning and say, you did awesome work. You're awesome. And then your body will stay awesome. But it's because we've become so compliant and relaxed. Yeah, I'm a little overweight, but I'm okay. You just have to try to find a way to change that psychological part of it.
Nice. So, if your head's up in the clouds or on 80 million other different things, just kind of be mindful about the one physical thing that you're trying to work on.
Exactly. And, you stand at the mirror and brush your teeth every morning. Talk to yourself first thing in the morning.
That's a great point.
This is so wrong. We're doing this great herbal, healthy lecture, and I'm still in the Sierras, and they're spraying chemtrails. Sucks.
Yikes. Well, so one other thing before I get to kind of Herbs 101, I wanted to also discuss this weird uptick in ADD that I've been seeing.
So here's two things. Number one, of course, is the food and the food colorings. I've ADD since I was born. Our joke has always been Ricky and I almost got a divorce over red fruit punch because I just go bananas. But one of the reasons why ADD is so prominent, people are familiar with it, and it's diagnosed 10 times more than it ever was.
Yeah.
I have a homeopathic called attention deficit. That if I'm driving myself crazy, I take that. But every morning, first thing in the morning, I take a caffeine pill and it calms me down.
Yes, I do remember you used to walk around with like no dose.
Because there's two different kinds of ADD. One is a behavior problem.
Mm-hmm.
The other is that you metabolize so fast, things can work in reverse. So caffeine actually calms me down.
Yeah. So with the kind of just the ADD, which is like this scatterbrain, I mean, a lot of it I attribute just to how fast-paced our technology is. And, kids, especially the last 15 years, have almost been conditioned from birth of watching these cartoons and videos that are so fast-paced that they're not really sitting the way you and I were raised, where, we read a book or we went and played for hours and kind of got some of that energy out. But I am noticing ADD, especially in males, when they hit like about 45 years old, sometimes a little younger depending on their diet. Do you feel that some of that is hormone related?
I do. And men have a balance of estrogen and testosterone. We have so many estrogens in our food, it lowers their testosterone. And then they begin to rage. And that's, I think, more the ADD that you're seeing, is because men have that low testosterone.
Are there natural ways to enhance that?
Yeah. I have homeopathic testosterone, but there's a lot of things on the market, to boost a man's testosterone. I don't know if those work, but I know the homeopathic does.
Have you ever heard about eating like bison meat?
Oh, sure. Any kind of meat without hormones is going to have the same effect, because where you're getting your hormones, like if I'm a cattle rancher, I'm going to inject those cows with estrogen to make them beef up and have a heavier weight when I go to butcher them. I personally buy a cow every year. I just paid for this year's cow.
Wow.
And so I don't eat cows that have hormones.
Okay. So,
But bison, it's just like if you're raising rabbits. A jackrabbit reacts completely different to herbs or supplements or medicines than a regular house bunny would. Um, Bison are the same thing. They don't react the same to hormones as cows do, and so they don't inject them with hormones.
oh, interesting. Okay, so that's why someone had told me a while ago if you want to have a male baby, to eat bison, for the man to eat bison meat before trying to have the baby, if you know what I mean. Um, and
So in bison, they only butcher the male bison, and so that's where your testosterone is coming in.
Okay, now I get why they tell males to eat bison meat. Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Versus,
I had bison burgers; they're awesome.
so, okay, so let's talk for a second about women's hormones. Obviously, I've come to you more than a few times in my life about this. So we have, a plethora of issues with women's hormones, and you seem to have an herb for everything, which thank God. You have helped me through so much. So when it comes to the female body, and whether it's PMS or perimenopause, full-on menopause, postmenopause, you have done extensive study as to what the body really needs in order to supplement and offset those weird side effects that we all get.
Like licorice root is the closest you could get to natural estrogen. Wild yam is the closest you could get to progesterone. You can use homeopathics for the adrenals, because our hormone system is our hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal. And I actually use a homeopathic called just that, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. But when we get stressed out, or say we eat a bunch of sugar or something, our body gives us bursts of adrenaline. Hey, come on, speed this shit up already, because it affects your metabolism. And so when we've got all that estrogen, we get adrenal fatigue. And if your adrenals are fatigued, they can't metabolize the estrogen and the progesterone.
Yes, and from someone who is in adrenal fatigue phase 3, entering into phase 4 at one point in my life, I can tell you it's not fun. Phase 4, right, by the way, is bed rest. Basically, you're not able to do anything. I was barely able to function. And it took me...
when we have adrenal stress, we get bursts of adrenaline all day long. Now we're anxious, we're exhausted, and adrenaline overrides the melatonin that keeps you asleep, and so now you're not sleeping, which makes you have more adrenal fatigue. So it becomes a wild circuit.
Yes. So what are a few things that people can do to hopefully stave off going into adrenal fatigue?
The warm fluids at the end of your meals, just so that you're digesting your food correctly. After we eat a meal, our intestines go through peristalsis, which is like a muscle contraction. When that tissue thins, we not only do calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, but all of your minerals and vitamins go through the wall of those intestines. So many people now drink cold and room temperature fluids that most of those minerals are going right through. And so when we become mineral deficient, our adrenals start firing. So a lot of times just drinking that warm fluids at the end of your meals will take you out of the adrenal fatigue.
Nice. Such an easy tip, right? And licorice root as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, ashwagandha is something that a lot of people talk about or take for adrenal health. What's your thought on that?
So ashwagandha is a great herb. All it's doing is it's boosting your immune system, and it kind of makes your metabolism speed up a little bit. The common name of ashwagandha is wild cherry.
Oh, okay.
Winter cherry, sorry. Yeah.
Nice. So let's go through just a couple things of like Herbs 101, like basic things that people deal with. I have two that I wanted to bring up because you really helped me with these. The first one was heartburn, right? So it's very easy to say.
Marshmallow root.
Yep. Marshmallow root.
Marshmallow root cures the mucosal lining from the time you swallow till the time you poop. So it's good for heartburn, acid reflux, asthma, if you've got a lot of gas, if you're constipated. Marshmallow root cures it all, and it's I give it to babies with colic and puppies with garbage gut.
Interesting. So is it in liquid form or pill form?
So herbs work three ways: wolf, turtle, and rabbit. Rabbit medicine works immediately, but it doesn't last long. Essential oils. Liquid is wolf medicine. Pack up on the symptoms and devour them. Capsules are turtle medicine. Work a little slower from the inside out. So I always say take marshmallow as a liquid, because when you're taking marshmallow like for heartburn or something, you don't want to wait a week for it to go away.
Yeah.
You want it to work immediately.
Perfect. I like that.
So capsules like a turtle medicine, if you had a long-standing or chronic condition like arthritis, I might give you turmeric every day so we build up a level and we maintain it so that it works every day. But, like for arthritis, if you were in pain, we could give you a pain tincture. But if we gave you turmeric in a tincture for arthritis, it's only going to last 8 hours.
Okay.
And then you have to keep taking it. So when you take the capsules, you build up a level in your body and you maintain it.
So for arthritis, besides turmeric, what else do you recommend?
So years ago, I volunteered one day a week at Placerville Health Food teaching muscle testing. In comes John and Jim. They were 93 and 95. And there was a 10% senior discount on Saturday. They said, Deb, can you grab us a bottle of that Zyflamin? I grabbed it. It was 30 capsules, $68.95 a bottle. And I said, oh my God, does this work as well as it should? He goes, yeah. He goes, we'd be in a home without it. So I stole the recipe and I call it Muscle Leaf. Because I thought the herbs were way too expensive.
Yeah, that is one thing that I absolutely adore about you, is that nothing you sell is overpriced.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if I see a really good formula, like there's a lot of really good teas out there. But I went on a tour of Celestial Seasonings, and they had these ginormous vats with tea blends in. And they would add herbs and keep stirring it up. And I found out that they didn't have to put an expiration on that tea bag until it went in the bag. And so some of those herbs had been in there for 5-6 years. And so I was horrified at that. And everything that we have, if something's on my shelf more than 6 months, we discontinue it. Because, you need those fresh herbs. So I go to the store and I muscle test my tea and store-bought tea. And most of the time, the store-bought tea is not going to be medicinal. It's just fun to drink.
Yeah. So licorice root tea, what would that be considered like a rabbit medicine?
That would be like a wolf medicine.
Okay.
But there's a tea and there's a decoction. You have to boil a root to get the medicine out of it, so that's called a decoction. Because you could dip roots in water all day long and it's not going to extract the medicine.
Yeah.
Most of the time I suggest licorice root in a tincture form.
Got it. Okay. So one thing that I had come to you about 2 years ago now, time keeps flying, it's amazing me, So I have been really, really sick and in the hospital with a thing that we shall not name that has been going around for some years. And, obviously I had to be on a buttload of prednisone just to be able to breathe. And if you know what prednisone is, it's a steroid. It's a wonder drug. Don't get me wrong. I was able to breathe and I made it through, but it has a lot of effects on the body. And for the first time ever, I had come out of that and my blood sugar was high. My A1C started getting, to a zone that I've never been before. And I came to you and I said, okay, they're talking about potentially wanting to put me on insulin in the future, and that is something I never want to be on. What do I do? And you had taught me about loquat leaf. You actually were brewing the tea at that point, which we both giggled about. Good timing. And I've been on it ever since. So please talk about loquat leaves.
So years ago, I did a medical missionary trip in San Felipe, Mexico. And because I wanted to learn about their local herbs, I did a bunch of research. And their number one health problem is diabetes. And they didn't have access to medicine because their hospital moved. And so loquat leaf is actually the cure for diabetes. If you put it on a chemistry analyzer, it has the same chemical composition as metformin. And so loquat leaf tea is the same as taking metformin, except for in a natural form. And you can actually cure diabetes with it.
So for someone who is diabetic or pre-diabetic, how much are they drinking?
At least 4 ounce cup a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other little?
We also make a blood sugar blend, and that's cinnamon, gymnast, and mulberry. That's also a capsule equivalent of metformin.
So if someone is on metformin and inculcates loquat leaf tea into their diet, should they go get, blood tested?
That's absolutely fine. I have one lady that's on metformin, and she started drinking the loquat tea after breakfast and after dinner. And her blood sugars were getting so low that the doctor took her off the metformin.
Oh, nice. Love natural healing. What other...
I've gotten several people off of the metformin.
Which is great because, prednisone the last 4 years has been doled out like candy, which rightfully so, but it has such long-lasting issues with blood sugar that something natural...
Here we go back to the warm fluids again. When you eat a meal, you digest into sugars, proteins, and amino acids. If you're drinking cold or room temperature fluid, those are stuck in your belly. But if you drink warm fluid, that sugar gets into the bloodstream where it can be processed. Sugar holds up in the fat in our body. And so when we're drinking cold or room temperature fluids, all of that is just holding it in there. So you drink warm fluids and it allows it to dissolve and go out into the bloodstream where it can be processed properly.
It's so simple and we make it so hard.
Yes, best thing anybody can do for their health is a quarter cup of something warm at the end of their meal. Coffee, water, tea. Put your finger in it. If it feels warm on your finger, it's warmer than your internal temperature. So drink it at least that warm.
It's so simple. I love that. What other quick little cure-alls with herbs can people do for just basic stuff that you've seen?
So what I see time and time again is people come in and they bring me a bag of supplements because they're trying to stay healthy. You have to realize that less is best. If we're taking supplements that our body doesn't actually need, we get bursts of adrenaline. Hey, come on, speed this shit up already so I can use it. Mm-hmm. So if people come in and they're exhausted, they're feeling awful, they're taking 10 supplements. We muscle test and they need 2. So the one thing I always say is a supplement is supplementing the stupid shit you're doing. If you're watching your health, you're eating good food, why are you taking a supplement?
That's a good point.
Yeah. Another thing I see time and time again is people will come in and they've got intestinal problems. So when we get intestinal problems, we have all this inflammation and we have all this trapped bacteria. So they start pounding down the probiotics. If I've got an early bacterial infection, what makes me think that 50 billion strains more of bacteria might actually cure that? 9 times out of 10, when people are having stomach problems, they need to muscle test those probiotics because they may be adding to the problem.
Ooh, good tip there. Because I know probiotics have been, the latest rage lately. What about prebiotics?
And prebiotics, people spend so much money on prebiotics. Prebiotics is fiber. It's like eating a stick of celery. It's a marketing thing that you're paying all this money for a prebiotic. So Metamucil, which is psyllium husk, it's natural. I tell people if you're drinking coffee, put a quarter teaspoon of Metamucil in your coffee. The caffeine will stimulate it to work better, and you've got your prebiotic.
Oh, well, that's easy and probably way cheaper.
And let's talk about caffeine. Like with turmeric, we add black pepper because it's a stimulant. Black pepper is a stimulant, so it makes it work better. So I tell people, if you take your supplement or your herbs with coffee, or with a tea that has some caffeine in it, the caffeine stimulates it to work better.
That is really interesting because I've been doing that naturally, not knowing why. Thank you for that insight.
Nettle tea is my favorite tea, of course. Super juice for your kidney and bladder, natural antihistamine, natural anti-inflammatory. If you put that tea bag in your coffee cup, it makes the coffee equivalent to a bottle of water and a multivitamin.
Ooh, nettle tea. And I know you sell that, right? Are those in the tea bags?
Sorry, the dog is squeaking his duck.
That's okay. That's so cute.
Either that or I have gas.
Either one. There's an app for that.
He just took his duck back over to his bed. We're good.
Oh, that's so cute. So, in your class notes, the one part that I'm staring at my notes right now, actually from 16 years ago. God, these pages are battered. That you had taught, and it was so simple. And I remember when I heard you talking about it, I thought, wow, like how silly are we? You were talking about the different foods and how they look like what they treat. So, for instance,
God's foods.
Yep.
So you can look at a plant and then it'll tell you what it does. That's called doctrine of signatures. Or you could look at a food and it tells you what it does. Like when you cut a carrot, it looks like an eyeball. It's good for your eyes. My brain just went blank.
A tomato.
You cut a tomato. It has 4 chambers, just like your heart, and it's a food that's good for your heart. If you've ever seen anybody with hepatitis or a baby with jaundice, how they look real yellow, all yellow herbs work on yellow conditions. So for the liver or for the kidneys, all red herbs work on red conditions. So your blood, your heart. Let's see, all purple herbs are what's called nervines or a sedative. Like purple haze makes everything groovy. Yeah, so you can look at foods or herbs and they tell you what they're going to do.
Yeah, like the walnut looks like a little brain, and
Right, exactly.
walnuts are hugely high in omega-3. I remember you had mentioned something, and this has always stuck with me. So you had said, look in your natural environment as to what seems to grow naturally, what colors, and that will tell you what your body is trying to work on.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here looking at a bunch of mullein plants coming up. And of course, I'm a smoker, and so I drink mullein tea to keep my lungs clear. And a good way to think about that, years ago, a gal trained all year long to do a race for her special needs twins. And she has periods from hell. And they changed the date of the race, and she was going to be on her period. So she came over and said, Deb, are there any herbs that we can take to make me, my period go like a week later or something? So we looked up all of the herbs, and I had everything out in my apothecary except for Angelica. And we're standing in the driveway talking, and I looked down, and lo and behold, there was Angelica. So we harvested that for her too.
So what would the color orange work on in the body?
So the orange is kind of red, but orange will work, like our muscles and tissues are 86% blood. And so orange would be like a good anti-inflammatory, like turmeric is bright orange.
Mm-hmm.
So orange could work on all of your tissue inflammation, but oranges also look like boobs. And so orange-colored herbs also work on things like fibrocystic breast.
Interesting. What about blue?
So blue will be sedative in nature or nervine. So blue herbs like blue sage helps with neuropathy,
Ooh.
Or sciatica. If you're real anxious, it helps calm you down. And when you go to the doctor and you get pills from the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
They use a doctrine of signatures, so the color of pills follows that same doctrine of signatures, and most sleeping pills are going to be blue.
That's a good point. Look at that. I've learned so much today. God, thank you. So besides all of what we've just talked about, you also work on animals.
I do. So I did take a course when I was certified in herbs for animals. And people don't realize, if you're familiar with your dog, you can muscle test something. Like I could hold up something and say, would this be good for Tonka? And so I can muscle test for my dog. I can also just kind of wave my hand out over him, and I'm thinking, what's out of balance? Right now his low back is out of balance. So I gave him a little massage this morning. The herbs are wonderful for animals. Essential oils, not so much.
Yeah.
Essential oils are so strong and can absorb through a dog's whole body. Whether, like for a human, we could put a dot on our hand and it's going to absorb through the skin, or we can breathe it. An animal is going to absorb that through their entire body, which means they can overdose really easy.
Great point. Yeah. Especially because most animals rely on their nose as a major sense. And that being overwhelmed, right, would probably just throw everything.
Yeah, and the soft part right inside of the ear would be similar to putting a tincture or a medicine right under your tongue. It goes right into the bloodstream. So when we've got essential oils, going off in the living room or something, they're absorbing that right into their bloodstream through the soft part of their ears.
So great point. So those essential oil diffusers would not be recommended if you've got an animal in the house.
No, and we had one when we were taking care of Ricky's mom, just the whole sick room smell. And so I always muscle tested the essential oils before I put them in the infuser. Would this be okay for the dog? And pretty much we stuck with peppermint.
Nice. And so besides animals, you do a lot of volunteer work. I know you work with a lot of the tribes in your area as well as the firefighters. And a couple of years ago during fire season, you were, right on the ground crew when these guys were coming out from fighting the fires, and you were giving them, if I remember correct, weren't you giving them like breathing treatments of something?
Yeah, so I went and I taught them how to huff crystal and smoke herbs.
Nice.
So that Mullen peppermint cigarette, when you take a puff off that, it pulls all the smoke out of your lungs. And menthol crystals, when you breathe them in, clear all the smoke out of your lungs and your sinuses. So we went and taught them how to huff crystal and smoke herbs.
Oh, God. So,
and for the Miwok tribe up here, I teach once a month. I teach a health class. They come up with an idea, and I invent a class for them. So next month's class is metabolism and weight loss. Last month's class, what did we just do? We did diabetes and allergies.
Nice.
So they come up with an idea, and I invent a class.
I love that. Yeah, you give a lot to your local community and just the world at large. So
we try to help as much as we can.
And you do a lot. I've hung out with you a lot, and I can tell you do way more than people probably realize. Now, one thing that I just want to share publicly, I'm going to try not to cry. So I was going through a family member who was really sick. And I was trying to quit smoking in the middle of this, which was probably one of the dumbest things I ever could have done. But I came up to you and I said, hey, I'm trying to quit cigarettes. And you kind of knew what was going on. And you said, go outside right now, let's go smoke. And I was like, well, that's the opposite of what I thought we were going to do. And you literally sat down with me and just smoked cigarettes with me and told me cry for an hour. And that has always stuck with me in my heart because that was the nicest thing that anyone could have done at that moment. But the whole reason I bring that up, besides how awesome you are, is a lot of times when we're like in a really stressful place in our life, we try to do too much is basically what I got from that lesson. And what you had told me is if you quit smoking right now with all the stress that your body is under, like you probably won't even make it. And
so I always tell people 90% of your health is how you feel emotionally. So my emotional downfall is stress. I have a genetic form of lymphocytic leukemia, so I have a cancer that's not curable. I go into remission. I've tried to quit smoking 3 times. All 3 times my cancer immediately came out of remission. So, still I'm a smoker, and people are like, oh my God, you do everything healthy and you smoke? Well, 90% of my health is how I feel emotionally. And I've been smoking since I was 11, and I'll be 70 in June. So it's been a long, long time.
Yep.
And so I just learned how to take care of my lungs, and I choose to smoke.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it, right? You don't have a lot of other vices. You do everything else pretty well. And again, if your body is used to something, especially for as long as you and I both have been smoking, you don't, at the most stressful time of your life, choose to, do a cleanse, quit smoking, change your whole lifestyle.
So here, let's talk about smoking for a minute. If you've ever cut anybody up, which I've whacked about 2,000 people, your lungs look like cotton candy. So we go out and we breathe in all these chemicals and everything, and it sticks to those nice puffy lungs. As a smoker, my lungs probably look like a worn out football, so I could probably suck off a bus and not get a headache. And people that have smoked for many, many years, like you're 60 years old, you decide to stop smoking. The one thing that we don't change is how deep we breathe. So after a couple of years, when your lungs are starting to clear out and everything, now we're breathing in twice as many chemicals as a regular person because of the way we breathe. And so somebody who's quit smoking is more apt to get lung cancer than somebody who's still smoking. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And you're right.
And they say, a doctor will say, well, the reason you got cancer is because you smoked all your life. You should have quit earlier. And it's because we breathe twice as deep as a normal person as a smoker.
Yeah, that's interesting. The way you breathe definitely will affect that.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know why that realization just hit me really hard. Thank you. So biggest things that you're seeing or sensing that are coming up, whether they're physical, metaphysical, spiritual, all of the above, like run off Dr. Deb right now.
So right now, the biggest thing I'm seeing, they're calling it the 100-day cough. So every year we get exposed to the cold or flu, our immune system says, oh, I'm familiar with that. I know what to do with it. So now all of these people have had the COVID vaccines, and they get the cold and flu, and it's mutating it. So now we're getting exposed to this mutated version of the cold or flu, and our body says, what the hell is that? And we're sick for a very long time. It's not because we got the vaccine, it's because we were exposed to a mutated version of a cold or flu. I coughed for 2 weeks. I didn't sleep. I was coughing so bad. I finally got a Z-Pack and prednisone. And after that, I was still coughing, so I did a prednisone inhaler for about 2 more weeks and finally got it under control. So right now what I'm seeing is people are getting mutated versions of common cold and flu, and they're freaking out because they're coughing for like a month. And even the doctors are calling it the 100-day cough.
Ooh. So what is a good treatment for that?
I take a homeopathic, it's called immune enhancement, and it actually has quinine and iodine in it, so it's like taking hydrochloroquine. So I just pay really good attention to my immune system, and our local golden seal is called Oregon grapefruit. Now, golden seal is an herb that's grown in the Midwest and back east. So if we take it all the time, we can build up a resistance to it. But Oregon grapefruit is the same as golden seal, but because it's local, we can take it all the time and not build up that resistance to it because we're familiar with those pollens. So, taking something for the immune system, trying to make sure that we sleep. Sleep is so important. And so many of us don't sleep because of all the adrenal stress. So taking something for your adrenals, I take 2 sleep capsules every night and sleep 8 to 9 hours a night.
Nice. So Okay, so that's the biggest thing that you're seeing physically. Are you sensing anything else that's either coming along
So
or?
emotionally, um, people are, with the politics, the wars, the interest rates, and people are just walking around and their mind is just spinning on all these things. And so somebody was in the grocery store the other day and embarrassed my husband. I grabbed her arm and I said, listen, I said, every morning when you wake up, think of 3 things you're grateful for. And she just started crying and she goes, how did you know I've been just so stressed out, you know? And so I do that every morning. I think at least 3 things I'm grateful for.
That's a great way to start
And
the
if I'm
day.
watching the news and it's bothering me, I turn it off and I think of 3 things I'm grateful for.
Nice. So definitely an uptick in anxiety just because the world.
Oh, sure.
Are you?
And I'll be driving along and I'm thinking bad thoughts or I'm worried about this or that. And I just have to stop and think of 3 things I'm grateful for because it kind of stops that roller coaster, where I'm thinking of, our home equity rate has a variable interest, what if this deer ran out and jumped in my slingshot? Just bad things keep coming in my brain, and so I just have to shift gears.
That's a good point. Shifting gears and going back to gratitude and faith is.
Yeah, and passion flower. Passion flower is a wonderful herb. It makes you more passionate about life. And so when my mind gets over busy, I'm ADD, so that happens quite often. I might go back on passion flower for a week or something.
So the big thing that I'm hearing is it's not necessarily a good thing to be taking the same supplement every single day, right?
No, not necessarily. And when we muscle test, we can ask things 2 ways. One, is this good for my health? There's a lot of things that are good for your health. The question that I ask is, do I need this for my health?
Right, good point.
And so I only take what my body needs. And, I've got my supplements on the counter. So in the morning, I kind of wave my hands and I only take the ones that pull me forward. And for most, I would say 99% of the time, I take immune enhancement, bone stem, and a thyroid glandular.
Yeah. Okay, so certain things for certain conditions are good most of the time, and then other things are as needed, right?
Right. And, somebody will start taking a supplement because something's wrong. But once it's fixed, they keep taking it forever because they think that's a good thing. But once you've got enough of that supplement, then your adrenals are going to fire to help you use it because you don't need it any longer.
That's a great point. So take what you need when you need it and muscle test. Right. Muscle test, muscle test, muscle test. Right. Do you have any big...
And once you get used to muscle testing, you automatically do it. Like trying to grab cheesecake at the store. You're falling backwards. It's like, quick, grab that cheesecake.
Yeah.
We've always done muscle testing. If I hold donuts up to you, you go forward. If I hold dog shit in your face, you go backwards. So just remember, donuts and dog shit.
There you go. I like that. And if you're in the middle with either of those, we've got bigger questions. Do you have any big piece of wisdom or anything that you would like to leave people with?
Just remember to love and respect yourself and the people around you. Because if you're walking around with all of this love and respect, all that bad crap has trouble getting through.
That in and of itself is amazing advice. I am going to put your website on the show notes. Do you ship outside of the United States?
You know, anytime people have questions, if they want to shoot me an email, I type, I type 100 words a minute, so it only takes me a second to answer them, and I'm always happy to do that.
Perfect. So would it be important for when people are emailing you about whatever their symptoms are, whatever they're dealing with, to tell you not only what they're already taking, but also to tell you where they live so that you can help them out with things that are close to their region?
Most of the time when I read an email, I can feel the symptoms they're talking about. And so if I have questions, I ask, but most of the time I can already feel what's going on.
Yeah. So from personal experience, I have emailed you many times and just said, hey, this, that, and the other's going on. Just ship me what I need. And, in will come a nice little box in about a week, and it's exactly what I need. So, but I have that trust and that faith in you, and I know each other pretty well, that I know you.
Yeah, so I did have a lady that called me up, and she was having horrible immune system and Morgellons, and something in my mind said, where do you live? And she lived in New York. And so I gave her different immune herbs that I would have given somebody in California.
So location does matter. Do you ship outside of the United States?
No.
Okay, so United States only.
And the reason being, if I ship herbs out of the United States, it's irradiated in that container.
Ooh, that's a really good point. Okay, so it's not a customs issue. It's
a... They irradiate the containers in case there's any bugs in them.
Okay. So, for all of our friends outside the United States, I'm sorry. Take a trip on over to the United States and get some Dr. Deb herbs.
Well, they can send me an email, and I have a friend who just moved to Spain. And so when I came up with some herbs that she needed, she had it translated into Spanish and found out she could walk down the street and buy them at the fruit stand.
Wonderful. Well, we definitely have a lot of people in the UK and in Canada, and also in Central and South America. So that would be a really good resource for all of them, for you to be able to just tell them, here's what you need to go get at a local place.
Right.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much, more importantly, for being you.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Of course. And would you be open to other interviews if other people want to contact you?
Sure.
I'm signing you up for this.
As long as it's not doom.
No, there's no doom and gloom. Everyone is wonderful. I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone listening today. I hope you learned a ton. Dr. Deb Herbals, I will have her website in the show notes. And please, please, please support her, reach out, use her as a resource. And Dr. Deb, are you going to do some online classes one of these days?
We've been talking about it. I've just been so busy, I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay. Well, I'm going to promote you to do that because I was pushed to do it, and it was a wonderful thing. So I think you have a lot of wisdom besides what you just shared today. I know, I still have your binder from 2008, so that should say a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, lovely beings.